I have no friends, no girlfriend, and no social life to speak of. Nobody calls me, nobody texts me. I'm going to be alone forever. Forever alone, as they say. And I've accepted that. I will always live a lonely existence. And the worst part of all this is, I know it's my own fault. Because I have had opportunities. Even not too long ago, I actually did go out to the bars with a couple guys, which the one guy is kinda an acquaintance, but I mean, basically, I wouldn't feel comfortable calling him a friend because that was like 2 months ago that we hung out, and we haven't had much communication since then. This is Jamal I'm talking about for anybody that's familiar with my channel. He is the closest thing that I have to a friend, but since the last time we hung out, the only communication we've had was he texted me once, like a week or two after we hung out. He just sent me a meme. It wasn't even really like we talked, he just sent me a stupid meme, and I think I texted back, ha ha, or LOL, something like that. And that was the whole conversation. Then he texted me a few weeks ago just saying, what's up? And I texted back pretty much immediately. I texted back, nothing much, what's up with you? Or something like that. And he just never responded. So, I don't know. If you ask me, there's not really a friendship there. And he was pretty much the only connection I had to the outside world. Hanging out with him 2 months ago, and then another time a few weeks before that when I went to his house, that was my social life. So now I just don't have a social life. I guess theoretically it is within the realm of possibility that he might ask me to hang out sometime in the future. But even if that does happen, clearly this is a very infrequent thing. I wouldn't really call that having a social life. I know some of you probably have it even worse, so I'm not trying to act like I deserve your pity or anything, but, well, that's actually part of the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place. I probably could have a social life, not a good one. I don't think there's any foreseeable timeline in which I could actually have a fulfilling social life, but I could have a social life, I think. If I just pestered Jamal about it every other day and was just aggressively reaching out, trying to hang out all the time, then I probably could get myself into some kind of social situations, maybe even on a semi-frequent basis. And maybe that would be good for me. Maybe I should do that. But I'm not going to do that because really, I just don't want to. There's a couple other people too, I know from the past that if I really wanted to, I might could reach out to these people and try to reconnect and get some form of a social life going, but I just don't think it'd be worth it. Like, I understand that if I want to have friends and I want to have a social life, then I would have to put in some effort to achieve that. I think it's probably like that for most people to some degree. You have to put in some amount of effort, no matter who you are. Well, some people really don't have to try at all. I'm pretty sure that almost any attractive woman, they would just have a thriving social life regardless of how much effort they put in. But for an average to below average guy like myself, yeah, it's possible to have a social life, but it takes effort. And for me, I think the juice just isn't worth the squeeze at this point. Because yeah, I'm lonely. I'm lonely and it sucks. But what would I really get out of having a social life? Especially considering the social life that I would be able to achieve. What would be the benefit of that, really? Because at best, I'm pretty sure the best case scenario social life for me is still going to be just mediocre or less than mediocre. Because like a couple months ago when I went out with Jamal and that other guy, that wasn't really a lot of fun for me. I'm not going to retell the whole story here. I already made a video about it when it happened, but I'm not really into the bar scene. It's actually kind of horrible for me because I just have too much social anxiety to be putting myself in any kind of crowded situation like that. And really, it's not even just the setting. I probably could have a good time in a bar setting if I had a group to hang out with all night, or even just one friend, but that's not how it was when I went out with Jamal. And it was the same thing a while back, like, I don't know, it was like 5 or 6 months ago when I went to a party with Jamal. He just goes off and does his own thing, and then I'm just sitting there awkwardly by myself all night in a loud, crowded bar, just watching as everyone else is actually living while I'm just sitting there alone. That's not an enjoyable evening for me. It does kind of fill up my social meter for a little while. So, I guess there is some benefit, it's not all negative, but I don't really want to go to bars. I don't want to go to parties. I'd just like to maybe go to a friend's house every other weekend or something and maybe just play video games or just talk about something interesting. But my only social connection is just this one guy, Jamal. And he's the type of guy that he's extremely extroverted. He loves to be around people. He's always trying to pick up chicks. He only wants to go to bars or go clubbing or whatever, that kind of thing. The only time that we hung out at his house, he spent the entire time trying to convince me to go to the bar with him. Don't get me wrong. I like the guy. He's a good guy, but we're not really friends, I wouldn't say. Again, I like him. I'm not saying that I don't like, I'm just saying we're not close like that. I just wouldn't feel comfortable calling him a friend because in the grand scheme of things, it's not like we actually know each other that well. I'm pretty sure if I did try to get him to hang out with me more often in a setting that's more to my liking, he just wouldn't be into it. That's just not the type of person he is. That's not the kind of hanging out he likes to do. So it's just kind of a mismatch there between us, between what each of us wants to do and what we like to do. So there's no reason to even try. I really just don't see any possible way at this point that I'm ever going to find anybody that's actually someone I could be friends with. Ideally, I could have friends that would be cool with hanging out maybe like every other week, and they'd want to just chill either at their house or at my house, or maybe just get lunch or something, or even like go bowling or something like that. I'd be down to do something like that, like an activity. But really, I just think hanging out with someone one-on-one, just having an interesting conversation, that's the ideal hangout session for me. But I just don't see how that would even be possible. Obviously, there are people out there that prefer a good conversation to going clubbing or whatever, but the two biggest problems I have, for one, I'm just too old by now to make friends. I'm 37 now. Pretty much everybody my age already has their social circle filled out. People just don't have room for more friends, especially because most people my age have kids already, or they're married at the least, so they just hang out with their wife and their kids most of the time. I am also raising a kid. He's not mine. He's my cousin. He's my second cousin. He's a toddler now. He's almost 2 years old. If you don't know the situation, my mom is actually his legal guardian, but I live at my mom's house, and I'm basically this kid's primary caretaker. So my ability to get together with any potential friends is also limited. So it's just, logistically, it's very difficult for me at this point to meet someone that I could actually manage to spend enough time with to build a rapport and actually develop into a friendship. And yeah, being with my little cousin, that is socially fulfilling in a way. I do feel extremely lucky to have him in my life, but honestly, who among you watching right now would choose to become the de facto father figure for a kid that's not even your immediate family? You know, I love him. I love him to death, and I wouldn't trade him for the world at this point, but let's not act like because of him, I do have a social life. I still need peer relationships. I am not getting my basic human needs for social fulfillment met just by helping raise a toddler. I am at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm way at the bottom, okay? I have no social life. So, yeah, there's that. You know, I'm old. That makes it very difficult for me to meet people. And then on top of that, I'm just a really unusual guy in a bad way. I don't know if I'm actually like diagnosably autistic. I might be. I might not be. I really just don't know. I've never actually spoken to a doctor about it. But I do know that throughout my entire life, I have never been able to fit in with anybody I have ever met. I think my early exposure to the internet could have something to do with it. I have been terminally online since I was like 10 years old, so my interests are just all over the place. I think if I had grown up more so just being involved in the actual real world, just interacting with my own local environment and the people physically around me, then maybe I would have naturally gravitated toward more normie interests. But I was obsessed with internet forums by the time I was like 11. And back then, everybody on the internet was autistic. Regular people did use the internet, but they didn't create content. They didn't post on forums or anything. So I was unknowingly at the time, I was throwing myself into the pit of autistic antisocial internet users, and I think that kind of molded my personality a little bit. Not a little bit. I think it molded my personality a lot from an early age. So I'm just screwed. Okay, so just for an example of the type of life I was living online from a young age, just so you know just how much I never stood a chance. When I was, I don't know, 11 or 12 probably, I downloaded Dobitsu no Mori, the Japanese version of Animal Crossing. I downloaded that on a Nintendo 64 emulator because I was just so freaking pumped about Animal Crossing that I just couldn't wait for it to come out in America. So just figuring out how to download an emulator and everything at that age, you know, just that alone, that is probably enough of a true cell indicator on its own. But not only did I do that, I also made a GeoCities website where I kept a diary of what I did in the game every day, written from the perspective of my character in the game. So I would write these detailed diary entries about how I delivered a lawn chair to some bird for a frickin' walrus or whatever. Just anything and everything I did in the game on a daily basis, I would write about it. It was basically like a written version of a Let's Play, but yeah, you know it's over for you when you had an Animal Crossing diary before Animal Crossing even came out. To this day, I still remember so much specific drama that happened on this one Animal Crossing forum. There was a fucking Animal Crossing forum civil war where the user base splintered into two different factions, or it splintered into two different forums. Honestly, thinking about it now, that was probably my peak as far as having a social life. I mean, not seriously, you know, that forum was my social life for a while as a kid. I mean, that doesn't really count as an actual social life, but that is the time in my life when I did the most actual communication with other people. And that was, it was just online with random strangers. that forum was my social life. It was my entire social life for a while as a kid. Kind of like now, YouTube is pretty much my entire social life. So I guess it's not that much different now, but, that's not healthy. That is not a healthy way to live. Talking to strangers online through forum posts or through making, YouTube comments, YouTube videos, whatever, that's no replacement for an actual physical social life where you physically embody the same space with people. You have to actually be in proximity with people, witnessing their facial expressions and their body language and everything. You have to have that to have an actual social life. Okay, this virtual internet shit, this isn't it. This isn't real. This isn't healthy. Maybe it's better than nothing. Honestly, I don't know. It might be worse than nothing. It actually might be worse. But the reason I'm even talking about all this is just to show how much I've just never had the right interests. Like, I couldn't even fit in with other nerds back in the day because I was obsessed with Animal Crossing instead of like Dragon Ball Z or Diablo 2. Those were things that normie nerds were into. I like those things, but they weren't like a huge interest, I played Diablo 2 a little bit. Like, it's a good game, but I'm an outsider. I'm just a natural outsider. And by the way, I'm not still really into Animal Crossing. I do like the one on the Switch, but I have it very out of the ordinary interests to this day, either way. Or not even necessarily that my interests are just so out there, but they're just very much not fitting for my demographic. How many mid to late 30s-year-old men do you think there are living around me here in the deep South that are really into making YouTube videos? Because I could talk shop about analytics and thumbnail design and everything all day. I could talk about that all day. But it's like, even if there were some big YouTube autists in my area, how many of them do you think would be interested in talking shop with a guy that makes content like the content I make? My main hobbies right now are making YouTube videos and just BP related stuff, basically. Also, well, what I was going to say, there probably are some other YouTubers in my area, but they're probably all like 15 years younger than me, which I could theoretically be friends with somebody that age. I'm not necessarily against that, but it's just the way that my interests clash so much with the demographic I belong to. I'm just a fucking freak of nature, pretty much. I'm very unusual, and it's unsettling. My appearance is already unsettling to people, but it's made so much worse once someone gets a little glimpse into my personality and my interests and my hobbies and all that. That is very unsettling. The combination of my personality with my appearance, that's bad news. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to be around that. And I'm not just being self-deprecating here. I'm not being too hard on myself either. That's the reality of it, okay? That it's a matter of fact. It's just my internal life does not fit with who and what I am physically. And it's unsettling. I have been getting into baseball the last couple years, so I do have one normie thing I could possibly use as a foundation for friendship. But even that, I don't know if y'all know this, but Major League Baseball is actually not really that big around where I live. I live in the South. So, I mean, unless you literally live in Atlanta, maybe, because they have the Braves there, but people just don't really care about baseball around here. College football is the main sport here, and I truly just do not care about football. I don't care about it. And honestly, I don't even feel like baseball would be a good foundation for a friendship. I like watching it, and I kind of keep up with what's going on as far as trades and stuff like that, but I don't really feel like it's something I could talk about that well with someone. Like, I only got into it kind of recently within the past couple of years. It, I don't know. It doesn't really matter anyways. I'm just too fucking shy to ever hold a normal conversation. So it's not like I could even talk about baseball or anything else with anybody in a normal way anyways. I really am just incapable of making friends. The only way I know my one almost friend, Jamal, is because we worked together for a little bit. But I don't really see myself getting another job anytime soon. And honestly, that was a fluke anyways, because I never made any friends at any jobs I had before that. And I have had a lot of different jobs throughout my life. So I think that's the standard for me. You know, if I work a job, I'm not going to make any friends, and it's going to be miserable the whole time. I know I've just been talking about friendship so far, but my chances at finding a girlfriend at this point are even worse. I did somehow get a girlfriend by some act of God not that long ago, but that only lasted about 2 weeks, and I didn't even get laid. And I'm pretty sure she cheated on me. I think she just wanted a green card, honestly. Like, when I look back on the whole situation, I'm pretty sure that's what was happening. Just using Occam's razor. That is the simplest explanation. That's the only thing that would explain why she wanted to be with me, when at no point did she ever make any effort to actually do anything to make me happy. And I think we all know that she obviously knew the kinds of things she could do to make me happy as a man that has been lonely for a long ass time. Okay, like, let's not give her the benefit of the doubt that she was just naive. Like, okay, she, like any woman in the world that has ever lived, knew exactly the kind of things she could do to make me happy. And she didn't do any of it. I really hesitate to even call that a real relationship, because I got nothing out of it. I got absolutely nothing out of it other than, it was bad. I got some extra misery, and like, after that experience, I now feel even worse about myself than I did before. So I guess that's what I got out of it. She obviously did not actually care about me. She was just using me. And honestly, I am desperate enough that I'm okay with just being used, as long as it's in a way that at least, I at least get some benefit out of it. But that's not what happened. That's not the way that this so-called relationship was. But even so, I really don't see anything like that ever happening again. But sure, I'm a fake cell. Nothing I say is relevant because I'm just a big fat phony, because I had a girlfriend, whatever. You can think what you want. I really don't care. Also, my so-called ex-girlfriend, she did wear yoga pants sometimes, so it's not like she would have made a good mother anyways, or a good partner in any sense. But yeah, what I wanted to say, I'm pretty sure my chances at ever finding another girlfriend are slim to none, because I have no social circle, I have no social proof, and I don't have any connections to meet women through. And I have tried dating apps, obviously. That's a Skinner box of depression. Even above average looking guys struggle on dating apps. What do you think my chances would be? I'm already getting old and frail as it is. I don't need to give myself carpal tunnel swiping on women all day that I already know want nothing to do with me. And I hate when people try to tell me to just put myself out there. Like, you just got to approach, bro. You got to keep trying. It's a numbers game. You'll never win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. I think that's the absolute dumbest phrase I hear people saying. You can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. Like, yeah, I guess that's true. But also, if you think you're going to win the lottery, you're a fucking idiot. I know it is my own fault that my life is like this. Someone made a comment on one of my videos recently that I think was very true. It was basically something like, life is a series of choices where if you had just made a different choice in certain situations, your entire life would be different now. And for me, that is very true. You know, I have consistently made all the wrong choices. I had opportunities when I was still young and not bald where I knew that a girl liked me, but I just never did anything about it because I was afraid. So who knows? If I had actually ended up getting with the first girl that showed interest in me back in high school, that might have had a snowball effect. You know, I get with one girl and then that makes me more confident. And then other girls at my school see that, hey, he must be a cool guy because that other girl likes him, and so on. You know, it just snowballs. That could have put me on an entirely different trajectory. Or, you know, another example, more recently than that, I quit my job as an engineer to go back to school to try to pivot to being a software engineer, which that backfired horrendously. But if I had just never quit that job, even if I wasn't still working at the same place right now, I would probably have a job somewhere, probably a pretty decent job, and that would be a hell of a lot better than this. Just rotting away in my room at my mom's house, unemployed for, I don't even know how long at this point. I think like 7 years, maybe. I don't know if y'all know this, but it's really freaking hard to get any interviews when you have a long employment gap like that, 7 years long employment gap. It's impossible. And yeah, I know, lie on your resume, just lie on your resume. I've tried that, okay? The job market is just absolutely fucked right now. That reminds me of another thing I wanted to talk about. On top of my own personal faults, modern society is so isolating. Even for normal-looking, neurotypical people, it's just not easy to meet people and make friends these days. Going out is just ridiculously expensive, and people don't even want to go out anyways because then they'd have to leave their comfortable little bubble where they can just browse social media and talk to their friends digitally and get all their socialization that way. If you don't already have a friend group from back when you were in middle school, basically, or, you know, high school, college, whatever, if you don't already have that social group, then you're just screwed these days. Nobody is looking for new friends. There is a lot of guys like me out there that want to make friends, but I think, you know, just like me, most people in this position are so demoralized by this point that they've just given up. Just like me, just like how I've just given up. Because it's really not worth it when your chances of actually having some success in a social situation, that is basically like playing the lottery at this point. Or that's how it feels anyways. I really hate the internet, even though I am addicted to it, but I hate it because it's too convenient for everyone to just live their lives online. The current social environment in our society makes it so it's weird to try to approach people in public. It's weird to try to join a club or something, or, you know, just to try to talk to someone at a cafe or a bookstore or whatever. It's weird. Everybody thinks that's weird. The people think you're weird if you talk to them. And I know because there has been a couple times throughout my life where I've been standing in line at the grocery store or whatever, and some guy tries talking to me, and in the moment, I'm always thinking, I wish this guy would just shut up and leave me alone. you know? And that's probably just some guy like me that is so extremely lonely that, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just extremely cynical. Maybe I'm just a pessimist. But, I don't think so. I think I'm realistic. And I'm sure it is possible to meet someone the old fashioned way like that, just going up to someone at the store or whatever and striking up a conversation. But for me, it really feels hopeless. My social anxiety is too bad for that, anyways. I know that's a self limiting belief or whatever. I don't care. I feel helpless and I'm afraid to talk to people. It is what it is. I just accept that about myself now. It's a lot easier just accepting it rather than suffering day in and day out, feeling guilty about it, just always feeling guilty about not doing anything to try to conquer my fears or whatever. I just accept that my anxiety is debilitating and that's it. I accept it and I move on. I'm tired of feeling guilty about it. That never did me any good. So it is probably my own fault that my life is like this in the grand scheme of things. I'm fully aware of that. But it's also not like I wasn't born into this historically isolated society at the same time. So, whatever. It's a little bit my fault. It's a little bit the freaking environmental conditions, or however you want to say it. It sucks out here. And I know some of y'all can relate, and some of y'all have it a whole lot worse than I do. To any of you out there, if that sounds like you, man, I know there's nothing I could say to make you feel better, but maybe it feels a little comforting to know that I'm in the same boat. Or, if you do have it worse than me, then I don't know. I want to say something comforting or whatever, but I know that I can't because there's nothing you can say. It's just fucking life. For some of us, life sucks. I don't just want to say life sucks as a blanket statement because life is freaking beautiful for a lot of people, but for me and probably a lot of you listening to this, it's pretty bad. So I don't know. I accept I'm going to be alone forever. I am not capable of making friends. I'm never going to have a girlfriend. I'm never going to have a wife. But I just, I'm going to keep on keeping on, I guess. I've given up on trying to make friends, but I guess the one thing I have is, I need to be there for my cousin. It's weird because it's like I would obviously have never chose to be in this situation, but at the same time, it is like my motivation for living. So I don't know. But I mean, I don't know. I've said what I had to say for this one. Please watch some of my other videos if you resonated with this at all. I got lots of videos talking about society and loneliness and just talking about my own experiences, trying to navigate this hellscape. So I appreciate you giving me the time. Thank you.